Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to do a special selection today, which is where one of you tell me exactly what I need to check out. If you'd like to submit your own special selection, you can find a link for it in the description. Today we're going to be looking at My Dying Bride, who we actually checked out a couple weeks ago with the Vulnerable Side theme, and we looked at a song that was not a fantastic representation of them, but worked well for the theme. At least that's what I come to understand from the comments. Today's selection comes from Cynical Matt. It says, please react to this death doom epic, The Barghest O Whitby by My Dying Bride. This is them in top form, and I admit it probably should have been a 15-minute and a 12-minute song, but I think it works fairly well as one track too. Enjoy. Yeah, so this is a 27-minute long song. So go ahead and pause the video, get some water, get a snack, and get comfy. We got a half an hour of music ahead of us. Let's dive into it. Lightning, wind, setting the mood, that's for sure. I will say that the weather production, the lightning and not the lightning, the thunder, the winds, it's very well. I actually thought that thunder was real, so very well done. Yeah, a little bit of a retardando right there, pulling us into this next section. Very clean tom run. it's interesting to hear them adding more intensity to what's going on while not really speeding anything up. It really is coming a lot from the drums right here. There's also a unique clarity on the growls. Not that I can understand the syllables, but it's so far divorced from all the other sounds. It's like it's isolated. It's very easy to hear the textures and the sounds of the vocals. Really important to look at the nuance here. We're 5 minutes in, almost 6 minutes in, on a singular idea, and you really need to pay attention to some of the smaller ideas, what the drums are doing, what the violin brings, to see the song evolving in any way. Yeah.
It is the sky that bleeds my name, and in its breath my heart's contained. Watched you fleeing from my ruin. A scent of blood is your undoing. Through hope that grown under the rain, under my feet the world arcane. In suffering, I'm always right. Within the silver moon tonight.
Very poetic.
From my lips the word is sung, and in this voice thy will be done.
There's something really interesting with the vocals, with the like a delay on the backing vocals. Yeah, I love the way the melody is playing off of this foundational guitar line in the left speaker. Now we're back to the opening idea. Alright. So I wonder if they're going to take this in the idea of verse-chorus, and we're going to have another 5-minute verse. Well, I guess like 3.5 maybe, I suppose. When we take off the intro. Okay.
A great show of fear. Fear that I am near.
There's something interesting going on with the two guitar lines where it feels like they're just out of sync with the tempo the drums are laying down, and it almost feels like they want to be triplets. Yeah.
Come look back at me. I sense you on the breeze. The fall from your throne.
Yeah, they are triplets,
This
but
is all I need.
I wonder what the oddity is then. They don't feel like they're perfectly in sync, but they are triplets, and we're doing a triplet thing. Yeah, bringing in some harmony. Yeah, and then we're taking that triplet idea from the last section and playing it over. Yeah. Yeah. There's a massive theatricality to his vocal delivery. The way that he leads into and out of syllables.
your traffic of misery.
There's also a lot of slides and dips in his vocal delivery, and he slurs syllables into each other, and it provides such a stark contrast to the really harsh rigidness in the drums and guitar. Now I'm curious if this next 12 minutes is going to provide a different rhythmic structure for melody, because the cadence of the lyrical delivery has been identical throughout this entire track. Actually, I would need to go back and listen to the growls again. But I'm pretty sure all the clean lyrics were identical. Yeah, filling out the width. Really needed that. Retaining a lot of the same energy and feel from the previous section. Like, the riff itself is different, but there's so many of the same building blocks that create this riff.
It is my sins that you deplore. Well, count them fair, for I have more. To my mouth I carry you in crimson teeth. Your breath I drew.
Yeah, the restraint on that drum fill there to rein it in. Once again, it sounded like the guitars were doing something slightly out of sync. I wonder how much of it is intentional and how much of it is just allowing for human imperfections to shine through the music.
I make you dust as you were falling on an sea.
Very interesting to have 3 centered leads here. Especially since our lead guitar here that's centered electric keeps landing on these really dissonant tones. We still got a few minutes to go. I wonder where they're going to take this. Okay. Yeah, a bit of focus, singular direction. Both guitars coming in with the same idea, which has not been what they've been doing recently. A slight tempo increase, but a reliance on faster notes on top of it. And a shift to groove. And there's actually a lot of bassy weight here that's been lacking from the rest of the track. You can feel how much fuller this section sounds than some of pretty much the rest of the song. It's had a very anemic production as far as the low ends. A lot of clipping on that snare hit. felt like we had a slight tempo shift there, and I thought we were actually going to be climbing, and we didn't. I think we actually went back. Yeah, once again, we have a slight. It's always on these double bass kicks. I'm so curious about when this came out, especially in relationship, not necessarily the year, but the relationship as far as the band had been around. Is this one of their later songs? Was this off their first album? That kind of deal. Whatever they're using for that thunder is so good. I mean, I think it's just coincidence because it's left panned almost every time, and my window is to the left of me, but every single time I think it's real thunder. I'm like, dang, it's about to storm here. um, oh, so this was 2011. Again, I'm curious where that fits into their discography. Let me see if this will tell me real quick. Nope. Uh, oh, it's pretty late. They started in 91. So I'm going to wager that some of the things I'm going to talk about production wise are completely intentional and are not a uh, circumstance of money or resources or experience, anything like that that would cause for this for the production to be the way it is, because there are some really interesting choices about the performance and production that really they cause me to question their purpose. Um, but yeah, so where do I start with this? This is a 27-minute song that really, as far as I'm concerned, asks for the listener's patience. I think you really have to be in the mood for this vibe, this emotion, and at least on some level be interested in the story. The story being told of this bar guest. Which, if you're not familiar, it's like a demon dog kind of thing. It's a folklore animal beast. Folklore beast, I think, works best. And what I understand is they had heard these folklore about this bar guest that's was from their home city or hometown or something like that. And they decided, hey, we haven't really written much about where we came from. Let's write a song, let's make a folklore song or a song based off of, local folklore. And that's where we get this one. And it's about this beast who the lyrics say basically it seems like he's killing without any cause or any reason or pattern, and then they find out that it was a pattern, that the people who he was killing were he was specifically choosing, and it was a revenge story. Something happened to this animal when it was alive or something, and it came back as the Barghest, and it meets the final dude at like a lighthouse or something and kills him and carries his body through town or something. I don't know. Some sort of revenge story of a spirit, though. In that frame, I think a lot of this stuff works well. The atmosphere. It's very well. First of all, we get that little spookiness with the wind howling and the thunder going. This is something that shows up a couple of times. I think it really sets the mood. I mentioned theatrics somewhere in the middle of that reaction, and it really plays into a lot of the decisions I think that went into this. It goes into the weightiness of the vocals, the amount of space between lines in each stanza, the amount of space between each stanza, the weight and heaviness in the music, sort of the vibe and atmosphere that they're creating with the chords they're choosing. To me, it evokes a very I get like a black and white like grindhouse horror kind of vibe with this song, and I don't know. I think some of it is the production, um, because the production's a bit rough around the edges in some cases. In others, it's really interestingly well done. I can't really put a blanket description about the the production on this because it seems to bend to whatever it needs to be. But there's also some roughness in the performance as well, and I think some of those rough elements kind of give me that grindhouse kind of vibe to it, that sort of B film feeling. But then there's just this stark contrast in the music and the way it sounds and feels, the isolation of it that gives me that black and white feeling. And I think all that combined puts me in this mindset. Also, I mean, uh, let me pull this up real quick, but you know, also the cover art. That certainly helps. There's a lot of distortion and degradation in the. I don't know if you can see it as well with the picture shrunk, but there's like a faux film grain on top of it. It's not cleanly created, um, and I would say it's a specific aesthetic they were going for when they made the cover art or hired whoever make to make the cover art or whatever. Um, the cover art as well kind of evokes this black and white grainy feel. So yeah, there were a lot of things both outside of the music and within the music that kind of put me in this mindset. But every part of the song really felt like it tied into this, and I think a lot of that comes from the fact that the song is just kind of doing the same thing for a very long period of time. Um, so it can kind of zero in on this one feel and then just explore that. Um, I do want to say something that might be a bit controversial, but I'm wondering if anybody else feels this way as well. When we listen to double digit songs as far as length goes, um, especially once we get into the 15 plus area, we start 15, 20, 25, 30-minute songs. I feel like they tend to be extremely diverse. This is when we start exploring prog rock and we see songs that have, 20 sections to them or maybe extended solo segments. And it feels like all of it is packed in there to justify the length. Then we have stuff like this, which I'm gonna put in the same camp as that Krallis track that we checked out years ago, in that it's an extended period of time. This one's 27. I think the Krallis track was like 19 or something, of the same exact thing. It doesn't really jump between a lot of ideas. And, it's music for a specific length for the sake of the music. It doesn't really feel like there's any sort of justification of the length. It is long because it is long. And a it's a design choice I am still having a tough time coming around to. And I think a lot of that just deals with how I listen to music and what I enjoy listening to. When we have a long song like this that doesn't really change at all, and we have 5+ minutes of a singular idea without any variation or modifications at all, any sort of embellishing ideas, um, it really it pushes against my ability to enjoy it. And that's just a personal thing. I'm not saying that this is a bad idea or that this is the wrong way to go about writing music or that anybody who enjoys this is not good at music or doesn't understand it. I'm not saying anything like that at all. We all have our own biases, our own tendencies, what we tend to enjoy. This just, it is a lot of what I don't enjoy for a long time. And I'm curious, kind of how many other people are in that boat with me, where if this was 5 or even 10 minutes, it would be a lot more palatable, but stretched out to such an extent, it becomes annoying. I think that word comes with a lot of weight that I don't want to incorporate, but I think it encompasses what I was feeling. There were so many moments where I'm like, okay, I get it, move on. And it doesn't work necessarily in what they were trying to evoke and what they were trying to create with this music. I understand it is the length of time it is because they believe it needed to be that length of time. But man, I could probably cut this down to half the time and still get all the same lyrics in there and still capture that weight. It's just not going to capture the grandiosity of it. And again, like anything else that's subjective, is the grandiosity earned? Could it be earned with less time? There's a lot of things that come into play about how long a song should be and if it works well at the length that it is. And this is a question that can be asked about any song. You have a 60-second song out there, should it be longer? Could it be pared down? Is 60 short enough? These are questions that could be asked of anything. I'm not specifically saying that these are questions that need to be posed at longer tracks, but there definitely comes a point when I'm listening to a longer track of saying, is this the length it should be in one way or the other? And just subjectively speaking, I really think this could have been at least 90% as effective in everything that I think it was going for at a shorter running time. But as usual, I like to pair my subjective personal ideas with more objective observation. So I do want to go into this and look at some of the cool things that I think that they did in this that really helps sell it and create the atmosphere and the vibes and everything that they were going for, viewing this as a work of art rather than as casual listening material. So I started this analysis and I was actually I was going to go into this objective stuff first and then, stream of consciousness, we went in another direction. Atmosphere though, these guys nail it. Not only do they work within creating that B film black and white vibe, just with the textures of the guitar and some of the atmospheric elements they have in there with the wind and the lightning and stuff like that, They really understand how to create the isolating feeling of being this bar guest. I don't even know if I'm saying that right because every time I say it, I feel like I'm saying bar guest, like a guest at a bar. Maybe it's like barghest, maybe more like bargaining. You get that emphasis at the beginning rather than the end. I don't know. Every time I say it, it feels weirder. Maybe I should just call it spirit dog. Um. Anyways, this barghest is on a solitary journey of revenge. Right? They were wronged in their previous life, and they've come back as this demon, and they are going out into the night by themselves and killing the people who wrong them. It's a solitary tale, and I feel like that isolating feeling of being alone on this journey comes through in every aspect of the song, no matter how big or large the section feels. It always comes off as a bit anemic. There's always something missing from the production, and I think I landed on it at the end when I said that they really bring in the bass in and it widens out and fills the sound. And yeah, there's this punchy underbelly of the song that's just missing. It is just underrepresented, and there's a ton of space between all the instrumentation. The two guitars are heavily panned. They move when they're isolated, just the guitars, especially when we're hearing just the left guitar, which happened a couple of times. It's not a full pan. We can hear a little bit across the spectrum, so I'd probably say maybe about a 50 or 60. It is majority panned on a side, but it still kind of bleeds into the rest of the sound sphere. But it's very much, you got these two guitars on their sides, and then you have the drums and vocals center. And I even mentioned at the beginning about the production on the growls, how it's very isolated, right? I had said something like clean, but clean doesn't really cut it. It's still a very muddy production on the vocals themselves. I still have a very hard time understanding the syllables themselves, both due to however they're produced as well as the natural sounds that he's making. But as far as its placement in the sound, it is by itself. It doesn't bleed into any of the other instruments. And there's a lot of instances where I can hear even the smallest amounts of compression on it because it sits so far um, forward, centered, that the guitars don't bleed into it, and there is no overlap of the compression and overdrive from the electric guitars into the compression and distortion that he's applying onto his voice. I can really hear subtle nuances in how it's sounding. Little pieces of spit gurgling or whatever to add on top of the natural fry compression, and little variations in how much compression he's putting on it. Um, it's really cool to be able to hear all these nuances, but it's also very strange musically just because of the production that I'm used to listening to with a lot of modern bands. Um, you really don't get to hear the nuance in much of anything because there's so much bleed over to cover up the imperfections, so that you really only get uh, you know the clean aspect of everything. Um, so yeah, there's just this stark isolation to everything, and it really isn't up until, what was that, 2-3 minutes to go, when the intensity ramped up, the tempo ramped up, and we really got this booming completion of the sound sphere, which I think works well since his quest of revenge had been completed. That missing part of him, was found in a sense, um, and we get the full picture. And I really like how that worked out. It really does feel like being alone at night, a lot of this song, and I think that works well as far as characterizing this person's spirits, this Barghest journey, uh, as a creature of the night. I also really like the contrast in the vocal delivery versus everything else. I touched on this a little bit. The guitars are very strict, right? A lot of what they're doing, especially in the first half of the song, is all quarter notes, half notes, and whole notes. They're all on the beat and they change on the beat. Um, and it's, we have a note and then we have a different note and then we have a different note or chords. But the vocals, when we got rid of well, even with the growls, we had this snarl. A lot of the words were left hanging to get this crackling element, kind of tapering off the syllable. But especially when we moved into the cleans, a lot of syllables are just kind of slurred into each other. There's lead intos, like on M's, he'll get the my, like this really long lead in. And on a lot of the ends of lines, he'll actually do a little slide off and like fade out of it, both volume wise and range wise, and just kind of slide out of these notes. So there's just a lot of movement and characterization showing up in the vocal delivery that is not seen in the guitars or the drums. They're all very rigid, and then we get these vocals on top of it that are uh, very lifelike, very human, very fluid, I think is a good way to go about saying that. And it's an interesting contrast. It isn't something that we see in isolation in any one specific section. This just seems to be the way that this dude delivers clean vocals. Um, and I get it. If I had to sing at this slow of a tempo, I might start slurring my words together too, because anything else would just be, man, it'd be such a specific attention to enunciated details that I don't know that I would be able to do for 27 minutes. And just really hone in on a sort of metronomic speaking style. So it just works well. I don't know if it's something he specifically went for. Maybe this is his normal style. Maybe it just kind of he just got into it based on how the song felt to him. I don't know, but it works very well with this style, and I would probably do something similar. I'm not a singer though, so don't ask me to do something similar. um, what else did I want to touch on? Oh, speaking of this, because this kind of bleeds into imperfections, because, most of the time, if you were to write the melody line for a vocalist, it would not include, notes that go into syllables or trailing off on every syllable. So there's definitely an element of the performative aspect in here, and it creates this theatric, uh, vibe that's just kind of dripping off of everything that the vocalist says, and it ties in extremely well with the poetic nature of the lyrics. I want to read just a couple of these because it really does not take long to catch on to the style that's going on here. Uh, the second stanza, it is the sky that bleeds my name, and in its breath my heart's contained. I watched you fleeing from my ruin, a scent of blood is your undoing. It's very poetic writing. A lot of it is fairly surface level. I went through the lyrics, nothing really looks metaphorical on too many levels. There might be a couple metaphors here and there, but for the most part, it is just a very flowery way of speaking exactly what you mean to say. There are a couple of interesting ways to write things. Instead of saying that, somebody was crying, he says something about, is that look at the rivers that run down your cheeks or something like that. So it's not completely direct, but it is like elementary style of metaphorical writing where I can understand the metaphor. So, yeah, it has this theatric poetic element to it that I think works well with the delivery. It works well with the theme. It's really interesting to see in metal. Maybe it's just because what I've explored is a lot of um, mainstreamish heavy metal, but usually lyrics are rather direct. Metal is not usually a genre that, at least mentally, I compartmentalize with um, flowery, metaphorical, poetic lyrics. Um, I kind of take that back. There is metaphor in metal. I think the interesting thing here is more of the poetic aspect, especially with the use of the rhyming scheme. I don't know. A lot of it just, like, I could write this down or I could read this straight without music, and I think it comes off as really well as strong poetry. The meter is consistent. The rhyming scheme is consistent. There are a couple variations, but yeah, yeah. I could see this as straight poetry, even outside of the musical presence as well. So it is a very interesting lyrical creation or lyrical content style to hear paired with metal, especially this doom metal. Maybe I just haven't listened to enough doom metal, but yeah, with the growling too, it's like it's this interesting um, combination of gorgeous writing with a gnarly delivery. But yeah, going back to this idea though, it's very theatric. Every element of this, which harkens back to my ideas of seeing this in sort of a filmic kind of style. I think they just really nailed that whole vibe and atmosphere of what they were going for. The moodiness of it all. It isn't just the atmosphere. It isn't just the sound effects they were using. It's the lyrics. It's how the lyrics are delivered. It's how the production is created to give you that sense of isolation. It all comes together to create this theatrical vibe, and tell this story very vividly in an image. And I think that's my big takeaway with this, is that this song creates images 100%. The last thing I want to talk about before we finish this up, because we are working on an hour. If you're still here, thank you. Bear with me. I have a few more things. Um, the performance. So, first of all, God, man, the passion that these people must have to write this, practice it, record it, and probably even perform it. It is evident, because if you were to give this to me to play, I would be bored out of my mind a few minutes in. And that doesn't even take into account all the times I've practiced it to, really perfect it and nail it and be able to perform it. It is a lot of repetition of really slow moving pieces for a long time. The music does not interest me in that way. I don't have that connection to the music. For these guitarists and bassists and drummers to play this, it shows the passion they have, the connection they have to this music, to want to do this, to play this. And much like I give credit to bands who play ridiculously fast, I have to give credit to the bands who play like this as well, where it almost seems like a test of the muscles to be consistent with a slow tempo. I don't know if you've ever tried to do any keep time very slowly. All right, it is difficult, and this is actually going to tie into the next thing I want to talk about. But it is a lot easier to keep time with faster tempos, unless, of course, it goes over your ability. But I feel like musicians tend to rush much slower pieces like this than they do to play faster pieces slow. That's at least my experience. Um, and like I said, it's going to tie into my next thing too, because there's some interesting things in here about rushing. But yeah, I have the utmost respect for their ability to perform this and even find enjoyment in performing this. Like I said, I don't I don't think I could find enjoyment in one time. Maybe I would not. I would not want to perform this multiple times, multiple shows, especially if this is a big piece of theirs that they play on a tour and they got to do it every night or something. It is just not my cup of tea. And just for their fortitude to get through this and play it well and play it on tempo every night. Like I said, just speaks to their passion about the music. This is not something that I think everybody would be able to play consistently and constantly like they probably would have had on tour. Um, but this ties into, I was talking about rushing. This idea of human imperfection shows up a ton in here. There were a couple of guitar lines at the beginning that they would start together and then they would deviate a little bit, which was part of the music. And then they would come back together on like the downbeat of the next bar and start this idea, then maybe deviate a little bit and come back. And there's this nice little like melodic interlude going on with two different melodic lines that also lined up every once in a while. They got back in sync. But when they got back in sync, they were still delayed. Like you could hear, instead of bump, bump, it was like ba-dum. Like you could hear that one instrument was just slightly behind the other. And this happened several cases, several times. Guitar and vocals would be doing something, and you can tell they both have a quarter note on a downbeat, and one's just slightly behind the other, slightly ahead of the other. Um, and there's one part at the end. It was when the bass started bringing in the double bass kicks. Almost every time, talking about rushing, we would get like a 3 to 5 BPM increase in the tempo. And then when the drums would switch back maybe to eighth notes rather than the 16th, or maybe shifted to toms rather than bass kicks, we would bring it back down to where we were at. And there was actually one point where it felt like we were going faster and faster, and I thought we were actually going through an accelerando, which is a constant increase in tempo. Um, and instead we it felt like we were rising and then we hit a peak and I was like, okay, we're at a new tempo, and then just out of nowhere we went back to the other one, and it almost felt like the drummer was rushing through some sections because he was playing faster, and getting back to slower is, oh, we're going a bit too fast for this, I'm not supposed to be hitting the toms this fast. And then the band just kind of goes with the drums. Again, I'm not sure if any of this is intentional. It very well could be. But it was also really interesting to hear these little imperfections. We talked about this with the Slayer song last week, that I really enjoy hearing these human elements. I think it's one of the lost facets of modern production, is removing every and any blemish in a song. Um, So I'm that's why I wanted to look up the date. When I saw this was 2011, I was saying stuff like, obviously some of their decisions were intentional because we had digital audio workstations at this time, and they were a rather large band, having done like 11, 12 albums. So they definitely would have had the resources and experience to remove anything that they didn't want in the track. So, yeah, I'm a little curious about how much of that was intentional, how much was just left in imperfections. For all I know, they wanted more of a traditional feel to this, and they recorded it in one take as if they were doing it on tape and just kept what they had. I don't, bands can do whatever they want just because they have access to digital audio workstations and can record things track by track, and, do 50 takes and take the best one, or take a combination of elements from all their takes that were the best and create an artificial take that never physically existed. Um, you know, they can still do things the old way, even though we have modern technology. So, like I said, I don't know how much of it was intentional, but I am curious because it adds to that B film feeling. And I think it plays so well into it that it almost it would kind of ruin it if it was intentional, but also real big brain moment because they make it feel unintentional. Just how well are, how well of a composer are they to understand what feels naturally done wrong right? I don't think that sentence sounds correct, but I'm pretty sure it is the proper combination of words. But yeah, they make proper playing sound like actual mistakes. Um, which just elevates the band a little bit, but yeah. So I have a lot of appreciation for what's going on here. I do. It is not my style of music. I would probably never listen to this again. But there is a lot of really cool stuff going on, and as usual, that's what I really want to walk away from most songs with. I don't necessarily have to like everything that I've listened to, but I do want to give everything its fair shake and give credit where it's due. And I think these guys deserve a lot of credit for putting a song together. This is where you guys come in, the four of you that are still here, 62 minutes into an analysis of a My Dying Bride song. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this one. If you enjoyed it or not, if you agree with me on things, if you disagree with me on things, if you have any answers to any of the questions I've posed so far, again, drop those comments. Above the comment section is a description box, and there's a link for Linktree. Take you to this place right here. You can do all sorts of stuff here. You can join the Patreon, help support the channel. You can submit your own special selection. You can pick up some merch. You can follow me on Twitter. You can join the Discord community and like a dozen other things. Go ahead and check it out. Above the description box, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring that bell. Ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling. I don't know. 60 minutes is a long time to critically think about music and to not disengage the analytical side. I get a little loopy after like 45 minutes. All right. That's it for today. Tomorrow, make sure to come back 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC, as usual. We'll be looking at, oh, yeah, the Nirvana cover of the David Bowie track we checked out an hour ago, hour and a half ago, and another special selection. All right, until next time, remember to be critical but not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos. It was the Barghest O Whitby. I don't know. I fought so hard not to do a voice every time saying this title, just because it Barghest O Whitby. It just feels like it fits. I don't know. Have a great day, guys.